Hey everyone, Kim White here, and welcome to your 2022 year ahead horoscope for Aries, Sun, and Rising. I'm really excited to go over all the major transits of 2022 with you guys. This is a very, very big year that we're going to be having. And in this video, we're going to be going over pretty much every major transit of each month by month for you, so you can understand where it's going to be showing up in your life, how it's going to affect you, and you can better plan ahead for this year. Now, this is a two-part video series. In this video, I'm going over where it's going to be showing up in your life, how this year is going to be going for you. Now, I did the secondary video of going over every major transit of 2022 and what that transit's just going to look like in a very general, mundane sense. And I did that video so you can kind of understand the transit better, and then you can come back to this video and understand how it's going to be affecting you better. So make sure you check that out. As well, if you want early access to content like this, as well as monthly horoscopes for every single month of 2022, go ahead and check out my Patreon at the link in the description below. And if you really want to know what's going on specifically for you, you can go to my website, which I will put in a link in the description below. Anyway, let's go ahead and start talking about 2022 for the, wrong camera here. Bam, there we go. Let's go ahead and start talking about 2022 for the Aries, starting with January. Now, January, we have a few things going on. Jupiter is going to be back in Pisces, and Venus and Mercury are going to be retrograding. Mercury will be retrograde in Aquarius, as you see here, and Venus will be retrograde in Capricorn, as you see here. Now, I want to first talk about Jupiter in Pisces. This is really important because we already kind of got a little bit of taste of Jupiter and Pisces back in 2021. Now, Jupiter rules spirituality, beliefs, your faith. Jupiter rules integration. Jupiter rules optimism, right? And in May and June of 2021, Jupiter dipped a little bit into Pisces and then stationed retrograde and then moved back. So you can think back to May and June of 2021 and think, what was going on for you then? Because this is what a lot of the beginning of 2022 is going to look like for you. Jupiter rules, again, spirituality, religion, faith, right? Jupiter rules the sign of Pisces, so Jupiter, felt more comfortable here. For a lot of people, when Jupiter first dipped into Pisces, that was when the mask mandates got lifted and everyone was kind of like, there was kind of this sigh of relief almost for a minute. But Jupiter entered your 12th house. The 12th house rules isolation, alienation, the subconscious. It's both kind of subconscious fears and kind of your subconscious mind in the positive sense. Maybe the 12th house has been referred to as where you go to heal. It is also rules things like psych wards. So psych wards can have kind of a bad, rep to them. But the whole point is for you to kind of go away and kind of get better mentally. And so the 12th house rules that kind of area. The 12th house also rules foreign countries, hidden enemies specifically, self-sabotage as well. And Jupiter is transiting this part of your chart for the next few months as we start 2022. And so again, think back to May and June. Maybe you spent more time by yourself. Maybe you were enjoying more time by yourself. We're going to come back to this starting at the very end of 2021, but pretty much starting 2022 off. And Jupiter's going to be flying through Pisces. We're going to come back to this multiple different times. But as Jupiter is going through your 12th house, you're going to be kind of expanding your subconscious, questioning your beliefs and going, what do I believe? What don't I believe? You're going to be seeing what works and what doesn't work. And I think you're going to be doing that through a sense of isolation, a sense of kind of alienating yourself, but for a good reason. Jupiter also rules your 9th house of your spirituality, of your philosophy, of your faith, of your beliefs, of the social media and publishing. That's kind of another story or another topic. But the 9th house also rules higher education, all of that kind of, woo-woo stuff in a sense too. So Jupiter ruling that area, being in your 12th and domicile, there's going to be this kind of going within and kind of exploring, what your beliefs are, but in a really positive way. And that's really important as we get to the summer of 2022 for you guys specifically. Mercury's going to retrograde in Aries. Mercury's going to retrograde in Aquarius, squaring Uranus. So there's going to be some random thing that goes on with your friends and your community networks and your money. Mercury's going to station retrograde sometime in the middle of January. I believe that's January 14th. But just know that hold on, let me shift this over. As we start, January 13th, January 14th, Mercury's going to retrograde in your 11th house, squaring Uranus almost exactly in your second house. Friends and money. This is something unpredictable. This is a miscommunication with your friends, with your money, with your networks, with your community. Just, maybe don't make loans to people. Don't let people borrow things. You might get fucked over. And that leads us to actually the Venus retrograde that's going on. Now, I did a whole video about the Venus retrograde. You could check out somewhere. I'll link it somewhere. But anyway, Venus has been retrograding in Capricorn since December of 2021. And Venus has been retrograding in your 10th house of your career, of your image, of your basically what you kind of do with your life and how people see you. So you might have been having a big value shift in your work and in your career. Venus rules your second house of money, and it also rules your 7th house of relationships, and it's retrograding. It's changing its, relationship with these topics. Venus retrograded on top of Pluto, so you probably had a lot of chaos and a lot of maybe fear around your work or maybe your public image, or there was just a lot of dramatic change going on in your workplace. This is going to be continuing throughout the month of January. And as we kind of go through January, Mercury is again going to retrograde. Hold on, let me go back to it being an Aries rising. Whoops. There we go. Venus is going to be retrograding in your 10th house. Mars will also enter your 10th house, which we're going to talk about for February. And then Mercury will come back into Capricorn on top of Pluto. So there's a lot of dramatic changes going on with your career, a lot of dramatic changes going on with what you do for a living, your legacy, things like that. It's pretty intense. Not to say that it's all the way bad, but you can see a pretty dramatic change, which that leads us to February. Let's go ahead and go into February. We start February off, and the major thing I want to talk about of February is going to be Venus and Mars. Now, Venus and Mars throughout the whole month of February, are going to be conjoining each other to the degree pretty much. Now Mars and Venus, they conjoin each other all the time. They conjoin, whatever you want to say. They do it all the time. But for this time around, Mars and Venus are going to be conjoining each other exactly for a whole month, all through February, all through March. This is pretty rare. And I'm really excited for it. But what you're going to see this is Mars is going to be in Capricorn, right? This is your ruling planet that we're talking about here. Mars is exalted in Capricorn. So like Mars is all about action and energy and drive and engagement and fighting and conflict and, stuff like that, right? And Mars in Capricorn is like, I always like to refer to it as like a workhorse. It's like, when you're just putting in them hours, and like when you got a good structure, when you got a good flow, like Mars can when the rules of the game are set, Mars knows how to operate, right? Mars knows how to, it's kind of like Mars rules the military, right? When you get into the military, there's a lot of rules, there's a lot of strictness that really, helps guide Mars's energy. So Mars is exalted in Capricorn, and Mars is going to be transiting your 10th house. Again, your career, your public image, your boss even, or your company, all that kind of stuff. It's just stuff that everyone can kind of see. Now, Mars is going to be doing two things. One, it's going to be causing fights and conflicts. But two, you're going to be having a lot of energy here, a lot of things going on, but moving forward. Because as you noticed, Venus is now direct, and Venus and Mars are going to be conjoining each other the whole month going forward. Same thing with Mercury. Mercury's going to station direct and go forward. And in February, there's really kind of this like solid bedrock of, I don't want to say like a bottom. If there is a bottom, this is really it for you guys when it comes to work. But things really ramp up and come up from here. Just keep that in mind. But Mars and Venus, there's going to be a big kind of change in the rules and change in what you kind of value in your work. Again, Venus rules your second house of money and your 7th house of relationships. And, maybe you got an increase in your work. This could literally be like you got a promotion to a manager. Now you have to change your relationship to your coworkers. Now you're changing, maybe you're going from commission to salary. And so you're changing the way that you make money with your relationship with your career. And maybe the Venus retrograde with Mars is kind of like a learning period, a training on the job, so to say, right? That could be what this is. But when Mars and Venus start conjoining each other in February, you're going to start seeing a lot of ramped up energy and playing by a new set of rules going on in your career area, right? And this is pretty much what most of February is. Mars and Venus. Here, let me go backwards another hour real quick. There we go. Now back to Aries rising. Mars and Venus going through that 10th house. Mars rules your ascendant, right? It rules you. Venus rules your second house of money. Venus rules your 7th house of relationships and your 8th house of your partner's money, of shared resources. Not to mention, the nodes are now in this area, which I have a whole video about somewhere floating around. It's not out yet when I'm recording this, but I will have a video about the nodes going into Scorpio and Taurus that I will talk about more in there. But the 8th house rules shared resources, other people's money, the occult, right? And so this could literally be like investments, making more money, and Mars and Venus in your 10th house. Just a lot of career stuff, a lot of material things going on in your chart. And that's pretty much the whole month of February. It's just a lot of this intense energy, which gets us to actually March. February is kind of like this, like just going back over everything that happened in December and January. February is just going back over that. And we get to March, and we really start March off with a completely different vibe. Notice that there's a Mars-Venus-Pluto conjunction in your 10th house, while Mercury and Saturn are conjoining in your 11th, and this new moon in your 12th. A lot of things going on here, a lot to dissect. And, this Mars-Venus-Pluto in your 10th house that's representing like a huge power change and a power shift in your 10th house of your career. Number one, and that's something that I've been talking a lot about recently, is Pluto just rules general fear and anxiety. It's kind of like for some people, energy drinks make them feel very pumped up. For other people, it gives them a lot of anxiety, right? Or like maybe going really fast in a car pumps up some people, and other people, they kind of freak out over it. That's very Mars on top of Pluto. It is for some people, it's not for others. And I think Mars and Venus is now leaving shadow. Venus entered shadow in November of 2021. So think back, what was going on in November? That changed in December, that continued to change in January, that started to move forward in February, that is now completed by March. Venus will be in Capricorn for 5 months, essentially. And this is when all of that stuff, that value shift, that money shift, that relationship shift in your career, in your public life, in your legacy, right? For some of you, this could even be getting married. That is now done. That is now truly shifted. And I would almost, it's a little dramatic to say, but I would say a pretty big paradigm shift, because Mars and Venus are going to be conjoining Pluto together. A big change in the power, big change in the dynamic, big change in how you handle fear as well. Mercury and Saturn conjoining your 11th house. This might be an announcement with your friends, an announcement with a group of people, communicating this message to your career, to your colleagues. And this is a new moon in your 12th house. So this is really clearing up a lot of fears and really kind of examining your subconscious and really going, what do you believe? What do you not believe? And as we go through, that's how we start March, but then we go through March, and then all of a sudden, everything's in Aquarius. Mercury's in Aquarius, Saturn's in Aquarius, Mars and Venus are in Aquarius. And there's going to be all of this action going on in your 11th house of friendships. And then Mercury will enter Pisces. I'm sorry, I know I'm going back and forth here, but Aries is such a small sign. Let's do this. There we go. Everything, you're going to have Mars and Venus transiting together. See, they're still conjoining almost to a degree. Mars and Venus start their conjunction by the degree on February 12th, and then they start to actually separate on March 12th. So again, a whole month together, really big change. This is now going from your 10th house of how the world sees you into your 11th house of your friends, your networks, your colleagues, your community. And Mars and Venus in Aquarius, this is, kind of operating in a weird and unique way. This is kind of like being an outsider coming in for the first time. This is, doing things new for the first time. Saturn's also in Aquarius. So there's this sense of kind of like really being in a restricted place or having a certain framework in which you're operating from. But again, you're going to be much more engaged with your friends, your community, your networks in a different way, in a new way. But Mercury is going to go into your 12th house too. So you're going to be kind of all over the place with your mind at this point. Mercury conjoining Jupiter. You're going to be probably having some crazy dreams. Yeah, I would say some crazy dreams. You're going to be going through a lot of spiritual shit this year. And that's not bad. But I would say during this time, you might even be a little bit distant from your friends, and you may not even be hanging out with people, because I think you're going to be really going within this year. And as we go through March, March is really just this you doing things new, not necessarily like, we wrapped up everything of November through December of 2021 to January and February. And then March is just a lot of newness, maybe operating with new friends, changing your friends. Mars and Venus are also going to square Uranus, right? Which that kind of leads us into April. Let's go ahead and start talking about April. So April is really the highlight of the year for everybody, in my opinion. I've really talked a lot about it in my previous horoscopes, but let's kind of go over a few things here. Starting April 5th, we'll go to April 6th. For one, the sun's going to be in Aries through most of April. It's going to be going in your first house, or for some of you, it's going to be your birthday. So spring is here. You're feeling charged up. You're feeling energized. For the people who it's your birthday, it's a little bit weird right now because birthdays are just a little bit weird. For Aries risings, though, you're going to feel like really confident, really into yourself, just kind of like doing things. But starting on April 5th, Venus is going to enter Pisces, and Venus is going to enter your 12th house. Now, as far as the mundane world goes, like April's really, really awesome. It's just going to be a little bit weird for you guys because in April, not only are we going to be having Venus going into Pisces, but Jupiter, as you could tell, is now on top of Neptune in your 12th house. This is going to be kind of crazy for a lot of you. A lot of you are going to be, like the Jupiter-Neptune thing, you got to think. Neptune rules illusions. Neptune rules fantasy. Neptune rules mysticism. Neptune, that's funny. Neptune rules optical illusions, and Jupiter's conjoining Neptune. So, like, you're going to see, like, social media blow up in a weird way, the movie industry blow up in a weird way. But personally, while this is going on in your 12th house, I think you're going to be just, again, really on some spiritual shit, to say the very least. Like, really tuned into something. I don't know, for some of you, maybe you're getting into some crazy stuff. For some of you, maybe you're getting into Buddhism. For some of you, I don't know. But all I know is that the spiritual side of you, the subconscious side of you, you're going to be seeing things through a very just like altruistic way, I would almost say. And as Venus enters Pisces, there's going to be this enjoyment of wanting to recluse, of wanting to go within, of wanting to go within your mind. I think a lot of this too is going to be bringing up what is a belief and what is a fantasy. While Jupiter's on Neptune, I would be very skeptical of what you guys actually end up believing. This is going to be really easy to confuse yourself. Jupiter on top of Neptune, it's like, hey man, psychedelics are fun, but if you just don't permafry yourself, right? Be skeptical as much as you can. But as Venus enters Pisces in your 12th house, you're going to be really enjoying going within, maybe doing more spiritual practices. I don't know. And as we go through April, April's just awesome. I think you're going to see a lot of things move forward in the world that are really good. But Venus is going to be here. Jupiter, Neptune, I think you're just going to be like really seeing the world in a different way. Mars is then going to go into Pisces into your 12th house. And there's just going to be a lot at this point. You have Jupiter, Venus, and Neptune, and Mars. It's like there's a lot of good going on here. There's a lot of good going on in the background, but there's also a lot of, I think at this point, confusion. Maybe the music's a little too loud. Maybe you're a little bit too turned. Like, you know what I mean? Have you ever been there? This is really fun. And I think as the sun goes into Taurus too, this is going to be a little bit more grounding. But I think also this might be a little bit overwhelming. You might have some like fears, some suspicions. You might kind of self-sabotage in a lot of ways here. I think during this time, you're going to know what's real and what's not real. Because again, Jupiter and Neptune, that's a pretty big deal. And that kind of leads us to April 30th. And like I said, April is a huge month. Everything's going to change. This is probably the best month. I'm just going over this really quickly for you guys. But look, Venus and Jupiter are going to be conjoining each other. This Venus-Jupiter conjunction is happening in your 12th house. And it's, during an eclipse in your second house of money. That's a huge change, in my opinion. There's some money thing going on for you. For some of you, it's going to be like some crazy, cool money stuff going on. For other people, it's going to be very kind of like, you're not really sure what's going on. I don't even know, to be honest, because for some of you, this could be like hidden wealth that you didn't know you had, investments that you didn't know you had doing really well. Some of you, this might be unexpected expenses. I would say something though very dramatic with your money that's increasing that wasn't expected that I would say is good. It's coming through your 12th house, though. I don't necessarily know where it's coming from, if that makes sense. Or this also could be like the second house rules possessions, too. So this could just be like receiving things from, maybe if you're like me, I was pretty much raised on yard sales and estate sales, and I fucking half my stuff was dead people stuff for the longest time. So that could be something like this. So April, and this is pretty much like the craziest day of the year. This is a really, really good day. A lot of things are going on. I talked a lot about that in the other horoscope. But that brings us to May. As we get to May, the major things that are going on is, let's fast forward. Venus will enter, Jupiter enters Aries. Mercury will go retrograde, which this Mercury retrograde will be interesting. But let me get to that in a minute, because I want to talk about Mars. This is by the end of May. I know I kind of just skipped over the whole month, but it doesn't really matter. By the end of May, so for example, or not for example, Mercury is going to retrograde in Gemini. I'm not too worried about that. I just think, miscommunication, things taking a little bit more time than usual, going over stuff again. Same old, right? It's going to go back into your second house. So this is going to be, I think, how you're organizing your money. I think if you make a lot of money, or if you have to spend a lot of your money, or if there's just a big increase in how you manage your money, I think the Mercury retrograde will be like, literally, how do you manage your money? How do you keep track of your money? Do you have an accountant? Do you have a CPA? Are you aware of how much like that type of stuff, right? Because Mercury is going to go back into your second house, where there's going to be this kind of like, oh yeah, I need to like actually pay attention to what's going on with my money. It's also going to station direct square Saturn too, so this is getting really serious about where you put your investments and who you invest your money into, right? But this is the big thing here. Jupiter is going to enter Aries. This is insane for you guys, and this is why I mentioned in the first part of 2022, you're going to have this real spiritual shit going on in your head. And then Jupiter's going to go into your first house. What does Jupiter rule? Spirituality, religion, faith, optimism, belief, abundance, right? And it's in Mars's sign, your ruling sign. What does Mars do? Energize. It's driven. It's engaged. It wants to fight. It wants to, go for things, right? And Jupiter's doing its job, which is to increase, which is to cause abundance, right? With Mars's tools, with action, with pure force, with like engagement. So Jupiter's going to go into your first house, and I really think all of that spiritual questioning and cleansing is going to lead you guys taking immense action. Mars is going to be going into Aries on top of your Jupiter. So a lot of you athletes, your athleticism is going to kick in. You're going to be taking a lot of action. You're going to be busy, in a fun way, in an exciting way. You're going to be wanting to pursue things in ways that you've never wanted to pursue before. You're going to be feeling very abundant with your energy. Jupiter rules your ninth house of your spirituality, and it's in your first house. Like, you're going to be feeling pretty good. You're going to be feeling pretty fucking good as Mars and Jupiter go into your first house, as the, corner turns going into May for you guys. Yeah, May is crazy. That takes us to June. As we get to June, pretty much, let me kind of fast forward a little bit. June is Mars and Jupiter pretty much going through your first house. You're going to be pretty charged up, doing a lot in June. I think one of the biggest things is Saturn's going to retrograde. So there's going to be this kind of, you've been taking on new responsibilities with your friendships, with your networks, with your community, and as Saturn goes retrograde, I think you're going to be dealing with a little bit more isolation. I think with Jupiter and Aries, you're doing things, I think, on your own. And I think Saturn and retrograde in your 11th house, I think you're just going to get a little lonely. Something about your friendships are changing. Something about the way that you relate to them, especially if they're coworkers, especially if they're people you work with, especially if they're people related to your industry, that's changing. Venus is going to be going through Taurus, though, conjoining Uranus in the North Node. Again, a lot of money stuff going on for you guys, where there's going to be a lot of, value shifts, a lot of, different things going on for you. I would say pretty good for the most part, but you're going to be pretty focused on this area for the most part. The North Node is also going to be pretty much conjoining Uranus during this whole time. So you're going to have some pretty inventive ways about going about your money. You're going to feel like, doing things different, I don't know, something. You're going to feel very energized and creative, and just wanting to innovate yourself when it comes to your money and your finances. Mars and Jupiter are flying through your 8th house. For some of you, this is going to hit your ascendant. When Jupiter hits your ascendant, I'm just going to let you know right now, it's going to be super easy to gain weight. It's going to be Jupiter expands things. But Mars and Jupiter are going to be there too. You're going to be energized at the very minimum. For some of you, this is going to hit your sun. Again, you're going to like a lot of the spiritual stuff, a lot of your faith is really getting engaged at this moment, which pretty much that leads us to July. In July, things really change in July, because when we get to July, really the two big major things is Mars enters Taurus. That's a huge, I mean, you can only pump for so long. Mars going into Taurus is going to slow things down a lot, or it's going to keep them stable. I think there's some instability coming with Mars, but Mars is going to go into Taurus. We're going to kind of slow down, not have the energy that we used to, not have the drive that we used to. And as we go through July, Jupiter also stations retrograde. And as Jupiter stations retrograde, you know, Jupiter's slowing down. You've had a lot of this confidence build up. Let's see. There we go. Jupiter stations retrograde, and then this is right before August. Notice Mars is getting really close to Uranus in the North Node here. But as we close out July, you know, Jupiter's now retrograde. For some of you, this is going to be like on your ascendant. And so I think, you know, you're going to start going, okay, whoa, a lot of things have moved really fast. What have I learned from this? Where do I have to remain faithful? Because that's what Jupiter does, right? When Jupiter's direct, it's like, here's all these great things. Here's all of this blessings. But then Jupiter goes retrograde and it's like, okay, what do you do when the well runs dry? What do you do when you don't have these things? Do you still believe? Do you still have the faith, right? And so as Jupiter goes retrograde in your first house, you're going to be really going like, okay, like I know what you're going to be knowing what you're capable of, believing what you're capable of, but really having to like put your money where your mouth is a really good way to put it, because Mars is also going to be in Taurus, which that brings us to August 1st. Write this day in your calendar. Write it in your calendar. August 1st, Monday. Big day in the world, period. This is Mars conjoining Uranus and your North Node squaring Saturn. This is a huge, huge deal. You're going to see this all over the news. There's going to be some type of something shitty that goes on, probably something environmental, but this is happening in your second house of your money and your finances. And look, dude, Mars, you've had the North Node and Uranus in your second house. If you've been playing with fire, if you've been risky, sometimes you get rewarded, and there's risk and there's reward, right? And this is definitely something about your money having an issue, meaning that could be like something you have breaks. That could be like all of a sudden you have to have a random expense you didn't expect to pay. That could be, you know, one of your investments goes sour. That could be, this could be an assortment of things. I can't tell you what exactly it's going to be. What I can say is on August 1st, there's going to be a big with your money, your income. And I think this is going to reflect career stuff. This is going to reflect friend stuff, network stuff, because Mars is getting closer to square with Saturn. And if we move a little bit forward into August too, Mars will square Saturn, where that's really kind of like, you know, like conflict, things not moving forward, not wanting to. A lot of destabilizing energy, a lot of things just kind of, you know, falling apart at the seams. This is going to be honestly really shitty for a lot of people. But my advice would really just be like, you know, don't second guess yourself. Things may not exactly be as stable as they might appear. And so this would just, again, remain really skeptical this year. But I think when it comes to the money stuff, you're just going to have something, you know, for some of you that just might be an unexpected expense. For some of you, you know, something that you own that's expensive might break. I don't know what it's going to look like exactly, but that's what it's going to be, something around money and possessions. And Mars is going to square Saturn. There's going to be a lot of delays, I think, when it comes to the money and the work, and it's just, don't expect anything to go really fast. Expect things to really slow down. Expect things to really stop, in a weird way. Expect to make different plans around August. I would just expect this to really throw a wrench in a lot of your plans. which is actually interesting because that kind of leads us to September, because that's the majority of August, right? Is that Mars Saturn square, Mars Uranus, and then Leo season. That's pretty much the majority of it. But then when we get to September, let's go back to this Aries stuff. When we get to September, whoops, okay. Aries is such a small rising sign. I know that's really annoying going back and forth. Anyway, we get to September, and Mars is now in Gemini, right? So it's not in your second house. You're away from the money woes type stuff. Mars is in Gemini, where you're kind of taking more day-to-day action. You're, maybe bored, trying to find stimulus. Mars in Gemini, fighting with your words, being maybe a little bit more argumentative than usual. But Mars is going to be entering shadow. For the winter of 2022, Mars is going to retrograde in Gemini, and we're going to talk about that as we go on. And I talked about that again in the other video. But Mars enters shadow at this point because Mars is your ruling planet. This is just much more important. A few things to note too. Not only is Mars your ruling planet, but it rules your 8th house, and you've had the South Node going through your 8th house. So again, this whole year, really, there's going to be this change in your relationship to death. The South Node going through your 8th house, that could look like problems like the North Node's in your 2nd house, right? Like you're more focused on your money, your possessions, which you have. The 8th house, the South Node in your 8th house might be, you might be getting an inheritance, and that's what makes you change a lot of your money. The 8th house might be, you get some money back with your taxes, or the 8th house is shared resources, other people's money, death, the occult, secrets. And you're having South Node eclipses there where a lot of this area has been changing for you. And so the fact that Mars rules your 8th house, Mars is going to be retrograding too. Again, that 8th house stuff of other people's money, debt, intense fear topic stuff is going to be coming up. We'll talk about that. But as we get into September, Mars is going to enter shadow. So there's going to be this kind of change in the 3rd house rules I hate talking about the 3rd house because the 3rd house just rules so many things. It rules short distance travel. It rules, communication. It rules neighbors. It rules siblings. It rules family members. It rules, if the 9th house is like higher education, higher knowledge, the 3rd house is like, okay, how do you use that knowledge? Do you know how to apply that knowledge? And so Mars going retrograde in this area, you're going to have a big change in how you organize yourself, how you apply yourself. And that's going to be coming up later on. But the themes of that start in September. Mercury is going to station retrograde pretty much opposite Jupiter. And this is a big relationship thing for you guys. Some of you are like, huh, what? Mercury is going to station retrograde in Libra in your 7th house. We had a Mercury retrograde in September of 2021. It's funny, I'm recording this during that time. But just like there was a big relationship thing going on for you last fall, we're going to have another one. Mercury's retrograding opposite Jupiter, though. So this is going to be a big look at what do you believe about relationships and your role in them and what you do versus what the other person does. That's going to be coming up all through September. And that's basically September is that Mars enters shadow, where you're going to start really kind of being much more busier. And I think with Mars and Gemini, you're going to be busy doing a lot of things. It's kind of like, when you're on, it's like social media work. You think you're busy, you're busy, but you're not really accomplishing much. I think that's what a lot of this Mars entering shadow will be like. You'll be busy, but you'll notice how much time you're wasting. Because Mars will come back over that. But anyway, we get to October. Let me make sure. Yeah, so October really changes everything. I gotta take a breath before I talk about this. So we start October. October tells a lot of different stories. The first one is the Saturn-Uranus square. We're starting pretty much the month of October with that. This has been going on since, I think it was the beginning of 2021. So this is the last of the Saturn-Uranus squares. What we thought was stable isn't. What we thought had authority doesn't. It's Saturn squaring Uranus. It's what you thought we had our shit together with, we don't, in fact. What you thought was sturdy ground ain't. It's really funny. At the time I'm recording this isn't actually funny at all. The time I'm recording this is when that volcano went off near the coast of Spain off one of those islands. And a lot of people thought that, volcano was dead. And here we go. It ain't. It's life. But anyway, this is happening in your second house of your money, your resources, your what you own, what you possess, and your 11th house of friends and networks and other people. That also goes along with your 10th house of career. And there's unexpected destability, instability, so many different ways to use the same word. You know what I'm trying to say here. Don't expect things to be very stable during this time. Expect things to be very loosey-goosey when it comes to your friends, your community, and who you're sharing all that stuff with, and how that, affects your money. In October as well, there's so much going on here. Mars is going to square Neptune. So for one, Venus and the sun are in your 7th house. That's really good for relationships for the first part. You're going to be really enjoying your relationships for that first part. Mars is going to square Neptune, though. I don't like this transit. I think this is really overwhelming. I think you're going to be kind of confused. Like a lot of Mars is in Gemini, right? You're going to be doing a lot of different things. But it's squaring Neptune. You're not really going to be sure why you're doing the things that you're doing, what you're doing, when you're doing it, the reasoning behind it. I think you're going to be really overwhelmed. Neptune, again, confuses a lot of things, and it's in your 12th house. And again, it maybe you were on a really spiritual high this year. And I think by the time you get to October, some of that juice is kind of winding down a little bit. And I think the Mars square Neptune is like, dude, don't psych yourself out. Like, do what you know. Don't overwhelm yourself. Like, it's kind of like, when you're too busy setting everything up that you don't actually do the thing that you wanted to do. So yes, a lot of instability, a lot of this questioning. And then when we get to October, the very end of October, around Halloween time, this is what's going down for you guys. We have this Venus Cazimi / eclipse going on at the very end of October. The good news is you are not the only people that this is bad for. This is just not a fun transit, as you could tell. But this is really this is a weird year for you guys with your money. But this is probably a potential loss with money. This could be a potential, dude, again, your 8th house ruler is going to retrograde in your 3rd house. I think, with Venus being in your 8th house too. This could involve death of someone, death of a family member. This could involve the death of someone that you know. This could involve, any investments, any taxes that you owe. This can involve, honestly, also, let me just point out, it's 8th house transits. You're just going to be tripping in general. And there's eclipses happening here. You're going to feel very fearful in general. Like Scorpio rules your 8th house. You're going to feel very panicky. You're going to feel very, North node in your 2nd house, like checking your stocks every day, checking your bank account every day. In the South node in your 8th house, you're going to feel very not wanting to trust people, not wanting to lean on people, not really wanting to use other people's resources. And you're going to want to be more independent. And I think that there's this kind of, this is also going to bring up, the square to Saturn stuff. So this could literally be depending less on people maybe being there for you and being more self-dependent, or the opposite, you having to be more reliant on other people even though you don't want to be, because sometimes that's just life. Which that brings us to November, really. When we get to November, Jupiter will go back into Pisces for number 1. So, like I said, this whole year you're having this kind of spiritual thing going on where you're questioning things, but you're figuring them out at the same time. When Jupiter goes back into your 12th house, you're going to get it. I think you're going to go back to that sense of going within, being much more altruistic. Jupiter in Aries is very just fucking fuck it, go for it, wing it. Jupiter in Pisces is you gotta believe in yourself before you even go for it, before you even start charging things, right? And Jupiter is going to be retrograde. I think this is going to be asking, where did that faith go? Where did that belief go at the end of the year? Mars is going to be now retrograde. You're going to be less energized by November, okay? Mars is also your 8th house ruler. I'm going to probably expect either a few things. Family member problems, car problems, short distance phone issues possibly, especially if you don't own your phone and you make payments. You're going to have a lot of fear around unexpected money expenses. You're just going to be kind of tripping in general. And there's this Mercury Cazimi eclipse thing that's going on November 7th. That is just absolutely insane. This is insanity. This is a crazy day, November 7th. This is an eclipse, Mercury Cazimi in your 8th house. I don't like it. I don't like this for anybody, for any zodiac sign, but this is in your 8th house. This could be problems with work since Mercury rules your 6th house. This could be problems with health. Not for everyone, mind you, but it has 6th house themes and things becoming very clear. This is a Mercury Cazimi in your 8th house. You are becoming aware of things that you didn't see before. This is an eclipse. Where you thought you were seeing things, think of a full moon. This is supposed to be a full moon. Where you're supposed to see the full moon, the Earth's going to block it. So where you're expecting to see things, you're not. But where you're not used to seeing things, you're going to see things. I know that's kind of like a riddle here, but that's like literally, this is a total lunar eclipse in your 2nd house. So this is going to be shaking up your money, and you're going to be realizing a problem that I think you didn't see before. I think there's a reason why Jupiter's back in your 12th house, and you're going to have to be like, again, really going within and trusting a lot of stuff. I think this is going to really test you. Mars is retrograde. You're going to be doing things over again. You're going to be having less energy. You're going to be having less drive. Mars retrograde in Gemini. You're going to be overstimulated, doing too much. Mars is also going to be squaring Jupiter. You can't take on too many things if you're too fucking distracted, if you're not focused. That's what I think a lot of this is. And as we kind of go through November, for the majority of November, for that beginning part, it's going to feel really weird with all that Scorpio stuff. We'll get some nice trines with Venus, and, we get some nice water stuff where a lot of trust and a lot of emotions and a lot of, just being honest really with yourself is going to help you get through a lot of the stuff. Then we get to really, let me go back here. Let's see what happens before we get to December. Yeah, so then I want to show you guys too, Mercury and Venus start conjoining around this time, and they stay conjoining each other for a long time at this point, which is really interesting. But anyway, we get out of eclipse season, and that's really all. I mean, Mercury and Venus going into your 9th house, that's spirituality stuff, the higher education, the traveling, the learning in general, the culture in general, the belief stuff. This is all trining your ascendant. This is all, Mars is in Gemini in your 3rd house. You're questioning what you're doing and why you're doing it and what's the most effective way of doing it. Mars is squaring Neptune, right? And you are learning new things at this time. You are learning new things. You are learning how to do things again. I can't emphasize that enough. This is the learning time. Jupiter stations direct. You start getting it again around the end of November, which really does bring us, the end of November really looks like a learning period. And then we get to like that Mercury-Venus opposition with Mars. Again, more learning period stuff, which pretty much, again, let's go to December now. And we get to December of 2022. God, so far in the future already. And by the time we get to December of 2022, we're going to have this Mars full moon opposition, which is really interesting. Look at that. Yeah, Mars opposition while it's retrograde full moon. What do you know, and how are you applying what you know? Knowledge is useless unless you know how to apply it in your actual life. And I think Mars squaring Neptune is like, you might have thought you knew how to do something, or maybe you thought something was working a certain way and it actually wasn't working that way. And so you'll have to relearn things again. You have to relearn how to apply things again. It's like maybe you were learning a new software and you were used to Windows, but then, your company upgraded to Apple or whatever. So now you have to learn iOS stuff. That's that type of shit. In December, we have this kind of like our, learning curve. And then Venus and Mercury are going to be conjoining all in Capricorn again. They conjoined a little bit in Sagittarius, and now they're coming back towards each other, or Venus is starting to fly. They're pretty much all in Capricorn at the same time. So again, a lot of stuff going on in your career, more things related to like better all work, enjoying your work, being more efficient in your work. Even though Mars is retrograde, you're still in a period of kind of changing. but Mars is getting ready to station direct a little bit later. Jupiter goes back into Aries, though, at the end of December. You're starting to get it again, right? Jupiter's going back into Aries. You're just saying, fuck it, I'm going to do it. You know what I mean? You're just going to feel engaged. You're going to feel ready. Sun goes into Capricorn. And then really, I think it's at the very end. It's at the very end of the year. Yeah, Mercury stations retrograde on top of Pluto with here. And then, I mean, then we're getting into 2023, which is just so far away from now. So you'll have a Mercury retrograde in your 10th house. More career change stuff for you guys, but it's Mercury. It's very minimal. That's 2022 for you guys, for the Aries sun and rising. So let me know, what month are you most excited for? What month are you most looking forward to? What month are you guys most afraid of? And what are you going to do to combat that? What are you doing to get ready for this year? I want to know what you guys think in the comments below. If you really like this video, please let me know you liked it by liking it. I really appreciate you guys doing that, as well as commenting, as well as this is your first time on my channel. Subscribe if you really like this type of content. I do this type of content all the time, as well as if you want monthly horoscopes for every single month of 2022 for your zodiac sign. Go over to my Patreon, become a patron, where I do the monthly horoscopes as well as tons of other different astrology content. But I'm going to leave you guys with that. That was your 2022 year ahead horoscope. Thank you guys so much, and I'll be seeing you next year.